I get up in the morning because I want to start my day in truth, in God's service.
Nice. No better reason.
We were saying we get up in the morning and you know what you feel like if you don't get up in the morning. Reverse.
Yeah, so you guys were saying you feel rotten when you don't get up. Why do you feel rotten when you don't get up?
Because you don't accomplish anything, you're lazy.
Yeah, no sense of purpose.
Yeah, and like effort-based things have reward, whereas no effort brings no reward, really. So.
Yeah, it's a lot more positive than what I found out about myself. If I thought about these things, I would discover that I'm mainly driven by my insecurities. Like the reason I get up in the morning is to try and paste over and cover up over my insecurities by the work that I do. Maybe the work that I do makes me feel smart, intellectual, whatever. I might enjoy that, but deep down, if I'm honest with myself, sometimes the reason that I enjoy that is because I'm insecure about not feeling smart, not feeling like I'm contributing to something. So my will there is my want to like hide my insecurities from the world. Mark 7 verse 21. Could I please get someone to read that? 21 through to 23.
What was it, Mark 7, 21?
21 to 23.
For from within, out of the hearts of people, come the evil thoughts, acts of sexual immorality, thefts, murders, acts of adultery, deeds of greed, wickedness, deceit, indecent behavior, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these things come from within and defile the person.
Thank you. So the key point there that I wanted to look at was verse 23. All these evil things come from within. So these things listed in verse 21 and 22, some of the most evil things you can think of within society, they're coming from within you. Somehow they're stemming from some aspect of you that's driving you to do these things. On this, it's important to note that nobody has ever done something that they didn't want to do, that their will didn't drive them to do. You might think it's pretty easy to find counterexamples to that, i.e. if you're held at gunpoint and someone's trying to steal your wallet from you, you'd be like, oh, well, I didn't want to give them my wallet, but I did give them my wallet. I obviously didn't do what I wanted to do in that moment. But in that moment, the real choice was between dying and giving up your wallet. You didn't want to die, so you gave up your wallet, so you actually did what you wanted to do. So you've never done anything that you truly didn't want to do. If you're completely honest with yourself, you might have conflicting wants within any given situation, but the deepest want and the most deeply held want is what you're going to do. And this will start to play into things when we start thinking about how we better align our will or better submit ourselves and our will to God's will. This also infers that if it's true that you always do what you want to do and what aligns with your will, then you can't change your actions and behavior without first changing your will. And we'll see that as we go through as well. So what is God's will? Obviously, we can't analyze God in the same way that we do ourselves. However, we can look at what he says and what he's done and what he says he's planning to do to gauge what his will is, and get a better picture of it. So most biblical commentators split God's will into two different wills. The first being his sovereign will, and the second being his moral will. So God's sovereign will is God's ultimate control over everything in this world. So that's his purpose with the world, with the universe, and a bit of a gray area, but his control over your life. And then the second one there, his moral will, is how God commands us to live in our day-to-day lives. So first up, his sovereign will. Again, God's ultimate control over everything in the world, universe, multi-universe, whatever. It cannot be broken, changed, or thwarted. Nothing you do or nothing anyone does is going to change this will from being brought out. It's his big picture plan for the world and the individual level plan he has for each of us. If we go to James 4, verse 13 to 15, please. And when anyone has that pulled up, they can go ahead and read.
Come now, you who say, day or tomorrow we will go to such and such a town, or spend a year here doing business and making money. Yet you do not even know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wishes, we will live, and do this or do that.
Thank you, James. So yeah, we can make all the plans we want, but nothing is going to happen if it's not by God's will, or if or nothing that we do will impact God's will being outworked. Specifically, his sovereign will being outworked. Ephesians 1, verse 9 to 11. Could I please get someone to turn that up? And while they're turning that up, could I please get someone to turn up Jeremiah 29, verse 11? And again, Romans 8, verse 29. So Ephesians 1, verse 9 to 11. Hopefully this can answer a bit more about what God's sovereign will is. Obviously, it's very tied into his purpose. I think we had a Bible class last year on that, so we won't go super in depth into it. But does anyone have that pulled up?
Yep. Ephesians 1, verse 9 to 11. Making known to us the mystery of his will according to his purpose, which he set forth in Christ, as a plan for the fullness of time, to unite all things in him, things in heaven and things on earth. In him we have obtained an inheritance, having been predestined according to the purpose of him who works all things according to the counsel of his will.
Thanks, Josh. So verse 10 there, as a plan for the fullness of time to unite all things in him, things in heaven and things on earth, uniting everything in Christ. Jeremiah 29, verse 11.
Yep. For I know the plans I have, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope.
Thanks, Blythe. So on an individual level this time, God's will, again, there's a bit of grey area here, could be moral will, could be sovereign will, but he plans for welfare, not for evil, He plans and wills to give you a future and a hope. Romans 8:29.
Yep. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers.
Cool. So again, conform to the image of his Son. Yeah. So on a world scale, he's looking to unite all things in Christ, and he's also looking to do the same thing within our individual lives, and on that more precise individual scale. The other distinguishing factor of God's sovereign will over his moral will is that it's mostly hidden from us, and we may not fully understand or comprehend it. Throughout the Bible, we can get a pretty good general sense of God's purpose for the earth, but we don't know every single last specific detail, and we definitely don't know what He has planned out for us individually beyond the general comments that we just read. This makes it tempting to think, if only I knew God's will for me, I'd be able to follow it exactly. Everything would be perfect. I'd live the perfect life. I'd be happy, and I'd be welcomed into the kingdom. No worries. But if you did actually know God's will for your own life, it's more likely that we immediately start judging it against our own will. We'd probably look at it and either go, yeah, that looks good to me. I'm on board. Everything seems to work out. Or we'd go, that's a bit rough, but I guess there's nothing I can really do about it. So I'll just go along with it, or you'd actively try and fight it. Neither or any of these are a willing submission and acceptance to trusting God and to trusting what God has planned out for you is good. And so it takes away a lot of the power from it. Another way to think about it is we may not even have the capacity to understand God's purpose in our present state. So if you had a baby playing near something dangerous, like an exposed electrical wire with a live current running through it, you probably wouldn't sit the baby down and explain electricity, voltage, and the movement of electrons through a wire and how it could harm them. You just pick the baby up and move it. In that case, the reasoning behind the action is hidden because the baby couldn't comprehend it. And it's more than likely that we're in a similar position when it comes to God's will, both on a global universe level and in our own lives. So God's moral will. This is how God commands us to live in our day-to-day lives, how He wants us to go about our lives. And this is the will that we constantly break or fail to live up to, even though it's clear and understandable principles that we can follow. We'll turn up a couple verses just to highlight it at a surface level. Could someone please grab Micah 6, verse 8? Someone else, could they please grab Matthew 23, verse 37 to 39? And finally, Romans 12, verse 2. So the goal with these quotes is just to get a quick snapshot at what God's moral will might be. If someone has any of them, they can just go for it and we'll go bang, bang, bang.
Micah 6, verse 8. Who has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with God?
Matthew, Jesus said unto me, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto each, thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself.
Romans 12, verse 2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect.
Cool. So, quick recap. Do justice, love kindness, walk humbly, love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. Be not conformed to this world, but be of your mind. So that's a quick snapshot of God's moral will for us. Again, it's the will that we break every single day, even when we can pretty clearly read exactly what God wants of us, but we can't do it. Shadows of Romans 7 there. And then thinking back to when we looked at our own will, this will can be quite different to ours. So there are these two distinctions, but they're not super like black and white, really defined. So going forward, I'll just be using God's will to refer to either of them. It won't be what we're going to do. So this brings us to think about aligning our will with God's. Aligning is a good and bad word in this case. It could be submitting, but submitting makes things sound passive, where this is not a passive action. So we're going with aligning. Why would you even want to do this? You get a sense of freedom that comes from operating within God's will. As I briefly touched on at the start, that exhort I gave in 2024, our current culture promotes an exploration of your free will to live not aligned with God's will, but aligned with yourself in every aspect of life. And this is with the goal of that's how you'll be fulfilled, and that's how you live a purposeful life, is by living completely within yourself and aligned with your own will. Aligning your will with God isn't completely the opposite, as there's a part of us humans that does genuinely want to do good, but we also have to sacrifice some of ourselves. But in that sacrifice, we get a greater sense of freedom. We won't go into that. You can just trust. We have a prerequisite to try and align our will with God's, and that is a desire to change that stems from the realization of the ugliness of your own will, especially as observed from the viewpoint of what Jesus has done for you. You might have observed this in your earlier reflections of your will, but not all aspects of your will are good. Some are extremely ugly and entangled with insecurities, in my case. And these parts of your will have the potential to cause you to do terrible things. Exercising these parts of our will makes us feel good in the short term, but there's something about this that grates against us in the long term and causes us to feel unfulfilled and empty. In that way, aligning ourselves with God's will can kind of be seen as God saving ourselves, or God saving us from ourselves. And as we'll see soon, there's no concrete practical method that you can come up with to just do better at, to align your will with God. It's also not entirely possible to align your will with God. We're all humans after all. However, once you've looked deep within yourself and seen that you're not good, the path that exercising your own will it's clear that that path that you go down won't be good. And that should be enough to drive you to change. Sorry, lost my spot. let me backtrack a little bit. So you've got to have looked at yourself deep within and seen that you're not good, and that the path going down your own will take you down a path that is not good and will be full of ugliness. And then we can put this up against Jesus and God, and observe the love that they have for you and what they sacrifice for you. And that should be enough to drive you to, in the first place, want to align your will with God's. If not, either you haven't truly comprehended the sacrifice that Jesus has made for you, or you haven't truly realized just how evil and ugly your own will can be. Being part of a community like this, it is sometimes something that can be easily missed. As stupid as it sounds, from Sunday school, we've been told that, yeah, humans are evil, you're evil, you need saving from something, and it almost just becomes background noise. And it's easy to miss, really, in your life that, yeah, humans are evil, but you're also really evil and you're human as well. And Paul realized this in Romans 7. So what we read at the start of tonight. For I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. Now, if I do what I do not want, I agree with the law, that it is good. So now it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells within me. For I know that nothing good dwells in me, that is, in my flesh. For I have the desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out. For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I keep on doing. Now, if I do what I do not want, it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells within me. So there's this part of Paul that wants to do good himself. He doesn't have the ability to carry it out. There's a splitness to his person, as there is to all of us, which means that even the best people are capable of the most evil things. That's very blurred out. I'm not sure why. That is a picture of, does anyone know what that's a picture of? It's a picture of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde being the ugly green goblin sneaking over his shoulder. This is a pretty good story, as it aligns with what Paul was talking about in Romans 7. Particularly in the books, I'm not sure about the play adaptations and stuff, but there's a specific scene that aligns very well. We'll run through it really quickly. So Dr. Jekyll was a Victorian era doctor, and he noticed he had, like Paul did, he had this splitness to his personality. He had a good-natured side and a bad-natured side, and he thought that his bad-natured side was what was holding back his good-natured side. And so he thinks about it and he comes up with a plan, and his plan is to take a potion that separates the bad and the good. So during the day, he'll be Dr. Jekyll, he'll be good. And then in the night, he'll take the potion and that'll turn him into the bad, Mr. Hyde. Sounds like a good theory, but it turns out that he severely underestimated just how evil his evil side was. And Mr. Hyde goes about doing all these hideous things at night and ends up killing people. And when Dr. Jekyll realized that Mr. Hyde was out there killing people, he vowed that he would simply stop drinking the potion, not letting Mr. Hyde ever get out again. And to make up for things, he would live the most worthy and good life he ever could. So then he goes about doing all these things. And after he's doing all these good things, there's this scene where he comes and sits on a park bench. And in this scene, he's reflecting on all his good deeds, everything he's done. And he looks around him and he looks at other people and he thinks to himself, yeah, I've done way better good deeds than these guys have done. I'm good again. And then in that moment, he realizes that he's turned back into Mr. Hyde without the potion. Two morals of this story. Number one, in the beginning, Mr. Hyde was always there with Dr. Jekyll. He was created by this potion, but that just helped to reveal him. Even the best of us have horrible, ugly sides that we often underestimate. Number two, there's more than one way to be self-centered or serving your own will. You can be self-centered or serving your own will through evil means, going out and gratifying yourself however you see fit, as Mr. Hyde originally did. But you can also be self-centered by being the self-righteous good doer who sits around reflecting on their good deeds in comparison to everyone else, as Dr. Jekyll did on that park bench. And that can be almost the easier path to fall down. So the whole point of that is that even the best people are capable of evil things if left to them. And even when doing good, we may be serving our own will selfishly, and hence we need something to change, and we need to align ourselves with God's will. So with this as context, we're going to get into a group activity. And we're going to go through a couple character studies. And through this, we're going to try and answer some questions about where we might fail in aligning our will with God, how we might succeed, what we can do, what God can do to help us, and so on. We'll leave it pretty open-ended. Some of these are positive examples, some of them are negative examples. Some of them have a lot of depth to them, some of them don't have so much. So we're going to look at Jonah, Paul, Esther, the disciples generally, Ruth, and Jesus. And we'll double up on some of those characters. So we'll do this for 10 minutes, and then we'll bring it back and go through what we've found super quick, and that'll be it. Do you guys have a preference of character? Jonah? This table's doing Jonah. Do you guys? Hey, Paul? Do you guys want to combine with another table or? Okay, cool. You guys can do Esther. Phil, Indy, your table. Jesus. Wow. Wow. Middle table. Ruth, nice. Back table. Disciples. Other back table. No, we'll double up. The other two tables can choose whichever character they want. I think we've covered. I'll come round and give you some prompting verses. But other than that, a couple of questions up on the board that you can help to guide your discussions, and we'll leave it pretty open-ended. I don't have any answers. Both. Jonah 1.
Yep.
Good place to start. Specifically, I had written 1 to 3, verse 1 to 3. I'm sure the whole is relevant. Jonah 3, verse 1 to 5. And then Jonah 4, verse 1 to 11.
So 1 verse 1 to 3, 3 verse
1 to 5,
4 verse
1 to 11.
1 to 11.
So, and God's really loving it.
I got some passages for you. Acts 9, verse 1 to 9. Anyone want to write it down? Or you can just ignore me, that's fine. Acts, verse 1 to 9. Acts 9, or Acts 26, verse 9 to 18, Galatians 1, verse 13 to 16, and the world is your oyster.
Wait, did we get those down?
I got Acts 9, 1 to 9.
I thought you had it up here, guys.
No, I wasn't.
Galatians 1, verse 13 to 16, and Acts 26, verse 9 to 18.
What was that? There were two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, probably 80.
Very.
No, I agree.
He's got this philosophical thing about time.
Nah.
No, I read it. It makes things interesting. Right, cool. His first stage of life. Underline. Followers of Jesus. Because
No thanks.
but it's changed that because his conversion changed it. He noticed that his will was aligned with God's will. He changed that. Well, it was kind of he changed that.
I feel like he was very in control.
We do not know their rights and also much.
Surrounded with three
Very
pointers.
trusting himself first and then trusting.
Yeah, and when you're
Very unapologetic. They can actually not always have to be knowing what's going on with everything.
They probably had grey hairs at a young age. Grey hair.
basically, and I'm like, so, I don't know why, and also pictures people, I think he's wrong.
It's all about. Why then it's so good and just good back.
Now I'm glad that they were.
Well, I don't think there were pictures back there. I picture him with a full set of hair though.
Oh, that's
I picture him as a handsome man. Okay, maybe he was older.
No, I picture him like Nathan when he's like.
Really?
It's what I picture him when he's like, there starts falling.
I picture him with like a good set of hair, good beard,
I think maybe it is.
and then maybe 40 onwards, near the end of his life or whatever, he's got that.
The Bible does not describe Paul's physical appearance, but a popular scholarly text that acts Paul in Nephilim describes him as bald-headed, bow-legged,
Wasn't there something where she
Yeah, well, he thought they were.
That's pretty thin.
The Bible suggests all but not physically critics from 2 Corinthians said his letters are weighty and forceful, but in person he is and then you the dates of silence
I thought it was like tall, pretty handsome. But now it's just like short, maybe human.
You wonder, what did he say?
Just a rose. I'm kidding. More like it's just.
Right, we're done.
Yeah. My insecurity.
You have an opposing others. Wait, read it 2 years ago. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, no, he's a great figure in the Bible. Yeah, but like in my head, because like when people describe like Alexander the Great.
All right, we might leave it there. Has everyone finished or gotten somewhere? We'll really quickly go around and just see what people have found. Jonah table.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes and no. And
So yes, what was their will?
yes. So in terms of Jonah, he didn't want to go and do what God said. Obviously, God had a will to go save Nineveh. So they were aligned. Were they aligned? Obviously unaligned in terms of what they wanted. Did this change throughout? Towards the end, obviously Jonah did go and preach to Nineveh. But again, not totally convinced.
Yeah, cool. So we find that he didn't. So Jonah's still like watching all this unfold and he's still thinking, damn it, they're getting saved. So his actions aligned, but his will, maybe not.
Yep.
Nice. Paul.
Yeah, so we split it up into like two stages of his life because obviously he's got a conversion. So when he was Saul, his will definitely did not align with God's will because he was persecuting followers of Jesus and imprisoning them. But when his conversion happened, it was like the alignment of God's will. He understood what God's will for him was. So then his will aligned with God's will. So yeah, it was just like depended on the stage of life. And throughout his life, it just kept aligning even more and more.
Yeah, exactly. It's a pretty cool story. The other thing to note is that maybe not, but Paul might have been, or when he was Saul, he might have been 100% convinced that he was doing God's will originally, but he was definitely wrong in that. Bit of a warning there. Esther?
Her will was to do what Mordecai asked of her. God's will was to save his people using Mordecai and Esther as his tools. Were they aligned? Yes. Did Esther change? Well, she became stronger. She didn't change, but she became stronger in her resolve to counter Haman and to save the people.
Yeah, exactly. Again, another cool story. Exactly. She surrenders whatever fears or worries she might have about appearing to the king and surrenders completely to God's will. Jesus.
So you think it's an obvious yes, but what we actually found was most of the time, yes, but he was still human. So, and we know that he still had moments of temptation. And what made him so special was that he was able to overcome those moments of temptation every single time. But specifically, when you think about the Garden of Gethsemane, and where he was tempted, he says, "Not my will, but thine be done." So you could say that in that instance, his will was for the cup to pass, which was different to God's will. So in that instance, again, it wasn't aligned. However, Christ submitted to God's will, which is always ultimately what we're called to do. And then this changed for good when he was raised to immortality.
Yeah, exactly. What I found cool was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he is human, obviously, and obviously the greatest example though, but he still doesn't have perfect alignment. with God's will, because it's not like he says, not your will, but not my will, but your will be done. So his will hasn't completely disappeared, but he's submitted to God's will. This is the case where alignment is slightly the wrong word. Ruth, was it?
Initially, probably not. But throughout her life, her will changed, and obviously, after meeting Naomi for sure, she aligned her will with Naomi. And God had a will for her to be part of his promised seed and to be part of David's line, which is pretty cool. And ultimately, they aligned through Boaz. And yeah, she changed a lot through her life from being someone who had nothing to do with God and had no idea of who God would have been in the Jewish sense to being part of the seed of God's promise and God's own child, and becoming accepted. Like, by the time David comes around, nobody's talking about the fact that he's the great-grandchild of a Moabitess. He's just a Hebrew, and she's assimilated completely into their culture.
Yeah, exactly. The disciples.
Yep, so their will we were thinking is more to be able to rule with Jesus, and to, I guess, be in positions of authority. There's a few situations where you can see that play out, whether it was arguing about whether who was the greatest or to sit on his right and his left. And I think their expectations of what Jesus came to do and establish a kingdom and, I guess, rule with him is what they were wanting. But really, his will was for them to be servants and to serve each other and to serve others, and actually ultimately give their life for the truth. So I guess they were unaligned, but it did change throughout their life. So we can see that particularly after the resurrection, where they go and preach to the world with a renewed sense of purpose and service, and willing to give their lives for what they believe.
Cool. Yeah. Spot on. That covers all our characters, unless our other two tables really had something itching that they wanted to say, to add. Nice, yeah. Yeah, if not, we'll leave it there. Yeah, this might have been a slightly negative looking aspect. Humans are capable of very, very good things. There's a lot of good in the world. There's a lot of good in our community. That negative viewpoint is also important, though. As soon as you stop realizing or thinking as yourself as someone who can do evil things, things have potential to go south. But we'll leave it there. Thank you.
You for that, and however long that takes in our life.